Lucy. I appreciate that. All right, it looks like everyone is all connected to audio at this point. So thank you so much for coming this week. I believe all of you at this point should know who I am. I'm Marky Rhodes. But today, you're not going to be listening to me talk. Today, you're going to get to spend some time with Tiara DeGuzman, our Assistant Director of Career Services, who's going to be starting a 3-part series for us that is all about career planning. And this was based on the first year student survey data that we sent out earlier in the spring semester, basically asking you what it was that you wanted to learn. So this week is going to be all about, essentially planning for your career by finding experiences as an undergraduate student. And then the next 2 weeks, we'll move on to other career planning topics, and I'll share that at the end during some of the announcements. So Tiara, I'm going to let you take it away when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm happy to be here today and discuss career planning with you and some of the things you can do over the next few years, or over the next few weeks, really, to set up for your tenure at IIT. So some things first, before just getting started, I think it's always helpful to just let you know a little bit more about career services, what we do, what we're about. So we are still open 9 to 5, even though right now we're mostly virtual. We do have in-person drop-ins from 12 to 4. And basically, that is when a full-time staff member sits outside of the Commons in the MTCC, and you can just like ask us a question. We don't take appointments in person, but we are available to just like be there for if you have like a small question you'd like to ask. Um, Outside of that, we do offer 15-minute, 30-minute, and hour-long appointments on everything from document reviews if you need your resume or cover letter fixed, to interview strategies. We also offer mock interviews as well. We offer 60-minute mock interviews that you can sign up for. So if you have like a virtual interview coming up and you're like, I don't know what to do with that, or like what questions will be asked or anything like that, you can come into our office and we can do a virtual appointment with you about that. We also offer appointments around salary negotiation, career exploration, if you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your major in the long run. So yes, we offer a lot of different appointments for you all. And the way to sign up for these, and I'll put this in the chat as well, is to go to iit.joinhandshake.com. And that is really the website where all of the information that we have about career services can be found. So some learning objectives, as Marky mentioned, today we'll be talking about career planning, but a few of the things that you will hopefully know how to do following this presentation. One, how can you find some major related industry-specific career opportunities and leadership opportunities, both on campus and off campus, so we'll talk about those. And then secondly, what are some of the best ways to determine the steps that you should be taking in your career journey? So what is the goal that you ultimately want to end with, and what are some steps that you can take to get there over the next few years? So as I said, this is about career planning. Oh, speaking of which, as we go on, if you have any questions at all, feel free to pop them into the chat. I don't think Zoom has a raise hand capability like Google Hangouts, I'm not sure, but feel free to just either start talking if you just like have a question, just be like, hey, I have a question, or put into the chat, and I'd be happy to address that as we go on. And at the end, I will also ask if you have any questions. So to get started with this, what is career planning when we're thinking about it? So I have this super long, intense definition of what career planning is to the left, but to the right, just breaking it down, career planning is about becoming aware, understanding what are some of the things that you would like to achieve, understanding who you are and what your values are. That's like the first step with any kind of career planning. The second step is identifying goals. So from that place of knowing who you are and what you sort of want, it's then time to sort of understand like what are the things that I would like to accomplish over the next few years. And then of course the third piece is always implementing the goal. So we sort of start inward and work our way out. And so as we go through this presentation, I would highly recommend pulling out maybe like a journal if you have it, or having open like a Microsoft Word tab or a Google Doc tab, and just taking notes to sort of see what are some of the things that you learn about yourself, and what are some of the goals that you have, and I'll also give you some tips about how to implement those goals. Okay, so this little flow chart here sort of sums up what we'll be talking about today. So we're going to talk a little bit about where you've been. So that means where you came from when it comes to like your background, those identities that are most important to you, also past experiences that you've had that have been meaningful for your growth and development. Then we'll talk about where you are currently being an Illinois Tech student. What are your current commitments that you have both on and off campus to your family, to yourself? And then we'll sort of streamline all of that information into where you're going and where you hope to go. And we'll talk about how to get help to get where you're going. But first, we're going to do memory lane and just pop back to the past and think a little bit about where we are all coming from. So, when we're career planning, often when you sign up, even for an appointment with us with career exploration, we'll often ask you questions about like, what is it that you grew up? What were you like as a kid, right? Like that's sometimes where if you do like career assessments or if you go into a coaching appointment with us, that's usually where we like to start, like the past, because that influences who you are today. So, some of the questions that you should be considering: what did you love to do when you were growing up, right? So for me, I remember I started reading around like 3 or 4. I like won an award. It's sort of weird, but I won an award for reading the most books like at my school in a year, like when I was like 7 or whatever. So reading has always been something that I love. Makes sense then that when I went to school, I was an English major. Makes sense now that like I work with people. I love things about with communication and professional development and getting better because books are like that for me. So when you're thinking back to who you were as a kid, what are the things that you absolutely loved to do? The things that gave you life, the things that made you feel we often talk about it as being a state of flow, right? Some doing an activity that basically feels like you lose track of time. Maybe you forget to eat because you just love this activity so much and you just get so invested in it. When I talk to a lot of students, of course, at Illinois Tech, especially our engineering students, a lot of them talk about tinkering with things growing up, where they were like, oh, I was always creating things, or I loved Legos for that reason because I could build and like use my hands and be tactile. So for you, when you were growing up, what are some of the things that you loved to do? That is like the first thing you should always start with, because that's going to give us an indicator of what you should focus on as we go into the future. Who did you love to be around and who inspired you? So, yes, you can get the information from your own self, from the things that you love to do, but also you can get information from thinking about the people who inspired you and who you looked up to. I remember I had a friend growing up who absolutely like loved Tony Hawk, right? And so for them, Tony Hawk was a person who was just really authentic. They were a person who was very adventurous, and of course, they also liked skateboarding, like Tony Hawk likes skateboarding, is a skateboarder. So that gives us some insight. Maybe so he is not a professional skateboarder now, but he still like uses some of those values, that sense of adventure, that sense of creativity and like doing things your own way, like a lot of these things that Tony Hawk represented for him. So he like still invest in those things, even if he's not a professional skateboarder, right? So when you're thinking about who you loved to be around, who inspired you, it's less about what they do, and it's more about who they are as a person, like what qualities were you attracted to. And it can be somebody like a celebrity, or it could also be people like parents, friends, potential teachers, maybe even that inspired you when you were growing up, and who you wanted to emulate or who you emulated when you were younger. So that is another way to get an indicator of who you are and like what you like. And then lastly, what are some important experiences that helped you learn about yourself? So that could include something like being a part of a religious organization that meant a lot to you growing up and that's embedded into your values. Or that could be a camping trip that you took with your family, or potentially even a camping trip like you went to camp, and that was something that meant a lot to you. Um, and so as we're thinking about all these things, it's helpful because that sort of gives us a sense of your values, that gives us a sense of what you like and who you are. And then we can use that information to sort of translate that into where you're going as an IIT student and also as like a person. So That being said, I would love if we could just like take literally a second, just write in the chat, what are some things that you love to do growing up? Who did you love to be around? If we're thinking about our childhood selves, our inner selves, what are some of the things that connected to you as a kid? We can just like take a minute to do that. And then I'm gonna move on just because I want to be good with time. Things you loved. Also, it could also just be things you enjoyed, like certain shows or certain movies, certain video games, things like that. Okay, so hiking, listening to music, um, making art, doing puzzles, reading, being with animals, reading and writing, especially Criminal Minds being a show, okay, when you were younger that you enjoyed, walking around parks, being in nature. Yeah, so it's really helpful. I think that it's good to sort of think back to those activities and also start to assign some values to those activities too. Because, like I mentioned, for instance, like I don't, my career working as a career coach does not necessarily mean have to connect with my love for reading. But reading for me often means professional development. It means like growing and seeing new perspectives and seeing new ways of doing things. And those are some of the values that I bring to my work now. So it still influences me even if it maybe has nothing to do with my field. Um, so yeah, so as you're writing all of these in, try to think about what is the value. Like, so somebody wrote walking around parks. What is it about walking around parks that maybe connects with something about you? Like, does that mean, do you like walking around parks because you like the people watching? Do you like the nature? Do you like do you like the sort of meditative sense of being able to just walk and like be at peace and just see the world and observe, right? So asking yourself those questions too to get even closer to what values it connects to. But yeah, thank you all for sharing. It's really cool to hear like what you all love doing growing up. And I'm sure that even if you've grown out of the activity, there are still elements of that that show up, I'm sure, in you as a person now. So, talked a little bit about where we've been, talked about through childhood and like what that looked like. And now we're going to focus on where you're at currently. So, obviously, the biggest part of where you're at right now is being a student at Illinois Tech. And so, starting off with like, what is your major? If you're undecided, it's totally fine. That even gives us an indicator as to like where you're at. But in general, what is your major and why did you choose it? Why was that particular major something that stuck out to you? And so for you it could be a personal reason, like I chose English because I love to read and I was like, reading books doesn't sound like work, so I will do that. But for you, why did you choose your major? Does it have to do with you and you loving a certain topic? Does it have to do maybe even with your parents and your parents being like, hey, like we think this would be a great field, or maybe like one of your parents is a doctor and so now you want to be a doctor, or you would like to sort of see what that looks like. And so maybe for you, that value there is family, and that value is um, sort of like connecting with family by being in that particular major, right? And obviously, like not all of us have like a specific, like a choice about some of these things. But in general, like what is your major and like why did you choose it? Getting sort of to the bottom of that, whether it's that you chose it because you just money is important to you, so you want like more money in this field, or whether you chose it because it's something you like really enjoy, or it could be a mixture of both or neither of those. So just getting to the sort of center of why that is for you. What jobs or responsibilities do you have? So that can include current on-campus jobs, that can include part-time jobs or off-campus jobs, and then responsibilities could include if you're still a part of a religious like institution outside of classes and outside of campus, or if you volunteer somewhere, or if you like are in charge of being the babysitter for your siblings, right? Um, so those are some jobs and responsibilities. What clubs and activities have you joined already? So are there certain ones on campus that you gravitated to immediately when you heard that they were available? Who do you process your experiences with? So who are the people who you surround yourself with? Friends, family, um, potential like faculty, mentors, administrators on campus? Who are the people that you go to when you need help? and that you ask questions of. What do you read, watch, listen to, play? So, like when you're stressed out from classes, what are some of the things that you gravitate towards, whether it's rewatching a favorite show or starting a new show to binge or reading something interesting? And then lastly, what are you good at? So, and I have two tools in the chat, or not in the chat, on the slide. Use Science and Strengths Quest are two assessments that we utilize in our office to give students a better understanding of what they are good at, and where their strengths lie. So if you would like access to those tests, definitely like look on our website or email me, and you can get access to those assessments and learn a little bit more about what you're good at and what your values are. So it's helpful to assess like where we're at in this current moment. What is it about this moment that that we sort of connect to? And yes, use Science and Strengths Quest. I would recommend putting that on a resume, like putting some of your assessment results. There's a way to do that though that is not just like listing the things. Like I would say, um, if your top strength is something like developer, which is all about being good at seeing the potential in people, I would maybe write seeing the potential in people or seeing the potential in others on your resume rather than putting like developer because they don't know what that means, like employers. But yes, that's a really good question. I would definitely recommend putting assessment results and things you learn from assessments on your resume. So yes, so this is where you're at. And then our last section that we're sort of going to go into is where you are going. So what I have here are is it like a little like um, sort of like list that you can start to build yourself to determine what your professional and like college goals are. So college goals. So obviously the main one is to get a degree, hopefully within the certain amount of years that you have set aside for yourself that you would like to get a degree. Um, so that's the first thing. That would be an example of a college goal. Another college goal could be to get a 3 point whatever, 3.7 or to get a 4.0. It could be to take a certain class with a professor. It could be to become best friends with your roommate, right? Like it can be a mixture of goals that have to do with both your personal life on the college campus, but also your professional life as well. And then over here, we have some professional goals, and professional goals have to do with life outside of the classroom where you hope to build certain skills and responsibilities. So first thing is to get a job or internship. Obviously, like that would be a pretty good one to get a job when you graduate and to get internships before that. Potentially, another professional goal would be to present at a conference or to attend a professional conference. Another one could be to, I'm trying to think of another example. Another good professional goal could be to get a mentor at some point or to network with someone at a company that you would love to work at, like a Google or Microsoft. Um, and so, yeah, so these are the two sorts of realms that you should be making goals in. And of course, you can make things like personal goals and self care goals, wellness goals, things like that outside of that. But yeah, asking yourself the question, what would make you feel successful? What would make you feel happy, right? Success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So you may hear success to me looks totally different than it would for you. So really giving some thought as to what success looks like for you. Does that mean making a lot of money? Does that mean feeling fulfilled? Does that mean being able to give back to your community, right? So thinking through when you graduate, what is going to make you feel most successful? Another thing is what options would prepare you for your long-term career goals. So I remember growing up, I'm just telling you stories of people I knew growing up. But I remember growing up, I had a friend who wanted to work for Sports Illustrated. Said it forever. He said it in middle school. He said it in high school. He said it in college, and now he works for Sports Illustrated. So he really like, you know, said he wanted to do it, and that's what he does now. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I would say that that pathway is maybe rare that you sort of that somebody grows up saying I want to do this one thing and then they continue on with that one thing the rest of their career. So it's sort of rare to sort of do that, but I think like a good way to do it is think about like what those dreams are because that particular dream for that person He knew like, oh, I should work for the newspaper like growing up, and he knew that he should uh, like be in charge of, he should be a journalism major, and he knew all of those different things that he should be doing to get to that goal. So for you, if you have a particular company you'd like to work at, if you have a particular role you'd like to get at, even if you have, like, let's say you know that you want to eventually have a full-time job in the LA, Los Angeles area. If you know that, then there are some ways that you can prep for that. Start making connections over there. If there are conferences there, try to attend and get funding to attend those conferences. Maybe even talk to make connections like via LinkedIn with alumni who work at companies in LA, and then try to get an internship there, right? So there are certain pathways that you can take if you know like what your ultimate goal is. And if you're having trouble figuring out what your ultimate goal is, that is when you should go back to all of that information we just learned about where you've been and where you're at, and then sort of pull goals from that place of you being in alignment with your values. And then another thing to think about is, where do you want to see progress in your life? So some of these professional goals could also be a skill. Like, by the time I graduate, I want to be advanced at using Java and like knowing how to like utilize that and utilize different like softwares or programs. Or by the time I graduate, I want to be fluent in a certain language. So knowing that, you can sort of set up what your steps will be to get there. And so, some potential action steps to end. So, one, this is like a very quick presentation that just gives you some ideas about how to get started, but a great way to really dive deep into your career journey and career planning is to sign up for a career exploration appointment with Career Services. That is an hour-long appointment where, prior to that appointment, you take two assessments, and you come in and we talk about your different options. We talk about your particular goals, what you're good at, what kinds of work environments you would work best in, and then we come up with your own career planning journey together. So definitely sign up for that if that's something that you would like. Um, Join an on-campus club. A lot of students get skills from these clubs that are really helpful that employers want: teamwork skills, communication, even things as simple as like learning how to like effectively write emails and create an email signature. You get that sort of experience from being a part of an on-campus club organization. So making sure to sign up for that. Get a part-time position on or off campus, once again, to get those different skills. You can volunteer, you can shadow. So reaching out to past alumni who went to, who work at companies you want to work at, sending them an email and saying, hi, like, I'm a current student at IIT. I would love to just shadow you and like see what it's like being in your specific position for a day. You can work on a personal project. So there are students, you probably know this, Illinois Tech students are very creative and have a lot of passion for the things that they build. So working on a personal project, like developing an app, creating an online portfolio, um, coming up with certain like working on coding, things like that. That is something you can add personal projects to resumes. So that is something that, especially if you're a first year and like maybe you're struggling to find an internship for the summer or something, work on a personal project, add that to your resume. You still have good skills from that experience. Attend the career fair or other networking events. So making sure to come to those. Our career fairs happen in the fall and the spring. So come to those, even if it's just to like network and talk to people briefly, even if you're not actively looking for an internship. It's a good way to make to get used to networking and what that looks like. Have intentional discussions with mentors, professors, supervisors, and by intentional discussions, I mean tell them what you hope will happen in your career. Tell them, yeah, I think studying abroad would be something I'd like to do. And as you let people know that, they can reach into their networks and help you get those opportunities that you want. So tell everybody what you're interested in, tell everybody what you are hoping for in your career, because we definitely have the resources to help you out. Attend professional development workshops similar to this one. Get certifications, both online and via courses that you can take at Illinois Tech. Work on research with a professor, read books about your field, develop a list of people you'd like to network with. So it could even be cool to be like, this is a person who's in charge of an organization that, or a company that is a dream company. So I'm going to see if I can get a 15-minute meeting with them just to ask them like 2 or 3 questions that I think would help me in my own professional development. And then also taking a course outside your major or a graduate level course. Like, be open to exploring different options. There are a lot of different options out there for things that you can do. And a lot of students don't know what's possible because, you're new and you're trying to figure things out. So definitely ask if you want to know if a certain opportunity is available. Also, going to conferences is a really good way as well. And if you're a part of certain clubs and organizations, you often get funding to go to certain conferences. Some last minute takeaways, and then I'm gonna switch over to Marky. When in doubt, return to this activity, right? I do this as a full-time professional where I'm like, who am I? What did I used to like to do? Am I making space for that in my life, right? So feel free to like go through this activity again and again because that's what career planning is. It's that reflection and then looking forward. What are your goals? It's that process. Practice self-care and take baby steps. So you do not have to get an internship your first year and have a million internships before you graduate and do all this stuff. Instead, take a baby step. Try out a new course that you didn't think you'd be interested in. Read a book about something different that you are willing to explore. Take those baby steps. And honestly, I like to do is keep a little list in my journal of like all of those baby steps that I have taken so that you can sort of see over time, you can sort of see yourself grow and change. Lean on the people you trust. So talking to friends and colleagues and professors and peers and letting them know what you're interested in. Network with anyone and everyone because what we know from the research is that 87% of jobs are found through networking and not just applying for things. So people get jobs because they get references to jobs. So making sure to network, you never know who knows someone. So get to know everybody you can. And lastly, career services is here for your growth and development. So continue to use us as a resource if you haven't been already. And yeah, email me if you have any questions about that. So awesome. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to switch it over to Marky because I know she has some announcements for you all, but feel free to put questions into the chat as well if you have any.
Wonderful. Yeah, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. Tiara will be hanging out with us briefly, while I finish up with our announcements. So, my friends, give me one moment. I am going to share my screen and then we will finish up for the day. All right, so just a few reminders for you, friends. As a reminder, if you haven't checked out the Office of Campus Life calendar, please make sure that you do that. This is wonderful. You can literally lay it over your own schedule. This will have the full schedule of any speakers that are coming in each week, any campus events, things like that. So I'm going to copy and paste the link and drop it in the chat here in just a moment. Also, friends, in terms of upcoming seminars, like I said, the remainder of the semester is really all about you. This is all based on the survey data that you submitted to us with the seminars that you said you wanted to see. So today, we just finished up our seminar all about finding experience as an undergraduate student. And remember that this is just kind of a little sample to get you started. If you want to take a deeper dive, absolutely schedule a career exploration appointment with Career Services so that you can take that deeper dive on an individual level. Next week, I know that one of the big requests we had was how in the world do you professionally network, especially during a pandemic, and what does that look like? So next week's seminar is already planned. Tiara is going to come back and join us, and she's going to talk all about specific strategies you can use to build your network while you're still an undergraduate student, so that when you do start that job search later on, you've already got some contacts that you can be reaching out to. And then Tuesday, April 20th, we'll finish up our 3-part career services series, all about resume tips and tricks. metrics. So that will be our last career planning session. And then our final seminar for the year on Tuesday, April 27th, will be all about financial literacy. So Victoria Rill, who is one of our benefits specialists in human resources, will be leading that session all about budgeting, investing, salary negotiation, and even planning for retirement, to give you some things that you can start thinking about. So join us for those seminars. If you have some friends who haven't been coming to the seminars, let them know that these are happening, since these are highly practical and things that they can absolutely start using right now. So my friends, that's all I've got for you for today. If you have any questions at all, reach out to your mentors, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And we will see you next week when we continue our career planning seminars. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.